Can I just change tack and go back to our looming 31st December deadline? And Bill, I know I'm the lawyer and I should know these things, but I'm going to ask you, what are the current significant moratoriums that are on?
Well, obviously there's a few that I think most of them came in around March when the pandemic really started to bite. So some of the biggest ones are the restrictions on ability of creditors to pursue debts through statutory demands and creditors' petitions against individuals. So the thresholds for the amount that you can pursue through the courts has increased significantly, and the time you've got to wait after issuing some of the initial paperwork has been extended from, I think, 28 days through to 6 months. So it's quite hard to pursue through the courts outstanding debt at the moment for a creditor. So currently those moratoriums and those extensions are due to finish on the 31st of December. There is possibility that they might get extended further, but at this stage it's 31st of December. So we find that's put a significant impediment on creditors being able to pursue their debts. So that is something that I think needs to change to allow the flow of credit to resume some normality.
Well, I'll throw one into the mix that has already expired, is the COVID commercial rent reliefs. For Queensland, they came to an end at the end of September. So we're back to a normal situation. So you're no longer going to be able to go to your landlord and demand some compromise on your rent. And it's also going to mean that where there's been a rent deferment as opposed to a rent reduction, that money's going to become due.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that goes hand in hand with some of the other less formal moratoriums. So the banks and the ATO as well, all were willing to enter into sort of deferments in the early periods, and a lot of those are coming to an end now. So obviously it's time to talk to those large creditors or stakeholders in your business and your landlord to try and work out what happens next. How are we going to deal with the arrears? How are we going to resume normal trading circumstances?
One issue that is coming to an early head when we talk about these creditors' statutory demands, the initial moratorium extended the period for 6 months for compliance with the statutory demand. If a creditor issued that statutory demand in March, those statutory demands are now crystallising, meaning that I could go ahead and wind up. There are plenty of trade creditors out there who will take that step. Should I be moving now if I've got one of those about to expire, Jeanette?
Well, there's a few questions before I get to an answer on that. I mean, we've got to assume potentially that solicitors such as yourself actually went ahead and issued the stat demand with the 6-month payment terms.
Yes.
And, a lot of solicitors may not have. Clients might have said, 6 months, let's just wait till September and issue our, our stat demands at that point, thinking that, everything would come to an end in September, which of course it didn't. The government gave them the extension to the end of the year.
Yes.
And so I suppose you were then faced with this situation in September. Oh, okay, now it's still 6 months, so I better issue a stat demand now, giving everyone 6 months to pay, or do I wait till December and then issue and go back to the normal 21 days? So yes, you're right. If there were people that, if there were solicitors and others that issued the stat demand back in March and gave everyone 6 months, those will be now become due, and you can actually sue and start winding up companies on those expired stat demands. And as for the people who those demands being levied against, of course they should be getting advice. There will be the courts will certainly have capacity to deal with winding up applications if that's the way things go. So I'd absolutely be encouraging people to go and get advice if they've received one of these stat demands.
We should probably also remember that exactly the same rules apply to individuals. So sole traders, a lot of small business is done by the sole trader model, and they'll be experiencing the same thing with applications for bankruptcy orders effectively starting to flow.
Yes.